Hi sewing friends, it's Erin van Handel from Mocked Sewing Blog, and today I'm going to take you on a tour of my sewing room. I recently got some new furniture for my sewing room and I shifted around where everything goes to maximize efficiency, and I thought you would like a peek at where I've landed. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. So we're going to start in kind of an unusual spot, a little bit of bonus space that I've reclaimed, and that is behind my door. I have a behind the door hanger for my ironing board, and I've had something like this in all three of my houses so far. It's a really good use of this space that otherwise would just be lost. You'll notice here there is space for an iron to hang, like you put your iron handle over this bar and it would hang there. I don't have my iron there, and that is because my Rowenta iron, the manufacturer actually recommends to set it vertically, like on its heel, and I think that has to do with the water reservoir, like it not leaking through the sole plate. So it probably is worth something for you to check out, you know, how the manufacturer suggests storing your own iron. So something else I've had in my sewing room for a really long time is this mirror. I've also had this at all three of my homes now, and even though it's not a full-length mirror, if I step back, I basically can get full length with anything that I'm making, which is really useful for fitting. A big part of my sewing room makeover was taking a lot of the notions and gear and other sewing whatnots out of this space here and putting them someplace else. So actually what's in here is a significant reduction from how it used to be. And I'm going to walk you through kind of a little bit how this is organized and what lives in here now. My ironing stuff lives in here, so I have a bin with like my ham, my little seam, my like hem guide, pressing cloth, like all of that stuff is in this little bin. My iron on its heel, stored vertically. I also have my tracing paper in the back there. My closet is where I keep my stash. In my stash, I don't know, I kind of feel like I have a small to medium sized stash. I really don't like to keep a lot of fabric around. I try to buy fabric just for projects and not hoard a lot of it because it's really too tempting to hoard fabric. So my fabric is in this bin, in this bin, and I don't really have it separated in a particular way. I usually try to roll it to kind of minimize creases. So that's where my fabric stash lives. And then I keep my patterns down here, like all my printed PDFs and my paper patterns kind of in this little box. Is kind of like a little mini filing cabinet. The main thing though was just getting all of my notions out of here and having them in my sewing, more in my sewing area where I could just lean over and open a drawer or open a box and get what I needed to, instead of going to the closet, unstacking all the bins that were in there and, you know, rummaging through those and then restacking all the bins where I stored my notions. This is my collection of printed sewing media, let's say my sewing library. These are all my sewing books, unless there are a couple hanging around in other parts of my house, which is entirely possible. They tend to like show up on my nightstand. I actually purged, I would say probably at least one width of shelf worth of books when I was going through and preparing to buy more furniture different furniture for my sewing room, and I'm really happy with what I have now. I think it's a real winning collection, and I think I'll probably blog about it one of these days. And then I have my Threads magazines and my Sew News magazines and a few random issues of Berta Style. And I like how I have them all just in one space now. They used to be kind of wedged all over the place, and this is it's just a lot easier to see everything, to read the spine of everything, so I can find what I'm looking for right away. This is where we start getting into the new furniture, which is very exciting. My old setup, which you saw, was that little square desk where my sewing machines, my serger and my sewing machine sat across from each other. And that was fine enough, but I really didn't have any non-sewing sewing space that was different from my sewing machine table space. It's like room for pinning and taking notes and like just kind of like really spreading out. So what I really wanted to accomplish with this makeover was separating those two kind of task specific areas, like sewing space and the non-sewing sewing space. So this is the sewing space. This is a double desk, double table that I got at IKEA. And it has room for my serger and it has room for my sewing machine. And it has been working out wonderfully. I am so happy that I have this table in front of my big, beautiful window. Gives me a lot of great natural light. Plus, it's just kind of fun to watch what's going on out in the street. And the little birds and my boys when they're running around and the neighbor kids and all that business. I also like the sunlight for my plant, which is also a new addition to my sewing room. I feel like that adds a good kind of like life vibe, kind of a living thing, living organism sort of vibe to my space now. I was a little concerned about this table because it was a pretty inexpensive piece of furniture from IKEA, among many of their inexpensive pieces of furniture. And often that's an indicator of quality, especially at IKEA. So I was a little concerned about whether it would hold up to two like pretty serious sewing machines. My serger is kind of a beast, and this isn't, my sewing machine, my Baby Lock Elizabeth, is no slouch. Sewing machines create a lot of vibration. And I have been pleasantly surprised that the vibration, the shaking has not been an issue so far. And I also got task lighting, these little LED lamps, which are super bendy. I really like them. Those came from IKEA as well. I'm very particular about light when I'm working, and I love to have a lot of light. I don't like to have shadows when I'm sewing. So being like blasted with an LED light is a dream for me when I'm sewing. With my new sewing furniture and new layout of my sewing room, I was able to shift around some old characters, such as my dress form. My dress form used to chill out kind of in front of my mirror. It was kind of like off to the side of my mirror, kind of on the left, kind of in between my mirror and the closet, which was fine, but it did kind of block the mirror a little bit, and it was kind of a random spot, but it was kind of the best that I could do considering where everything else was in the room. But now she is just tucked away very nice in this corner where it's just the perfect little space for her. Like this otherwise would be kind of dead space with the way these tables come together, but she slots in there just nice as pie. I'm really happy to have all of my thread out on display. Before I had my thread in those little like clear acrylic boxes where if you have like spools that are too fat, they never fit in very nicely, or spools that are too tall, like the cover doesn't shut correctly. But no more, my friends. Now everything is all together. Obviously it's done in a rainbow. My oldest son actually helped me with that and had a really fun time doing it. And it's really nice to have all of this available at a glance, because I had been kind of just buying thread for each project and not thinking through, like maybe I have a navy or maybe I have a turquoise. But now I have it all within eyeshot, and I can, you know, check to see if I have something that coordinates with what I'm working on. So guys, this is my non-sewing workspace, and I'm really excited about this desk. This is where I get to spread out my pattern pieces, both my cut pattern pieces and my paper pattern pieces. My cutting mats live on top of this desk when I'm not using them for like really big, you know, pieces where I'm cutting out. So if my pattern pieces are small enough, I'm able to cut right at this desk, which is a real trip. It is a great place where I can pin, where I can do easing. It's so wonderful to have this just free space where I can do all of those sewing related tasks that aren't actually sewing a seam. One of the things that I really love about this workspace is this picture ledge from IKEA I use for storing all of my rulers and French curves. So when I'm working at my desk here, I can just reach for my rulers, my straight edges, and measure and draw to my heart's content. So this desk is from IKEA. It actually is 3 separate pieces. It's 2 cabinets and this piece of glass, this glass tabletop sits on top of it. I've talked a lot about getting my notions out of the closet, and as you might have guessed, my notions have ended up in my desk cabinets. So all of my marking tools, cutting tools, zippers, buttons, interfacing, they all have a designated drawer or box within these drawers. I thought that I would enjoy having my notions more at hand. That's something I always assumed would be really great, but actually executing it, and now that it's the real deal, I don't know why I put up with my old system for so long. I should have just pulled it out of my closet and had a little chest of drawers, because it's really made my sewing so much more efficient. The coolest thing about this glass tabletop desk is something that my husband actually came up with. So I give all credit to my husband Mark for this stroke of genius, and it's something that has really improved my life as a member of Team Trace. So come a little bit closer and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what you're looking at is my DIY light box. This is really exciting, you guys. So the glass tabletop, when you shine a light through it, it turns into a light box where I can trace off pattern pieces super easy. The light that I'm using is a super bright LED like job site light that you would use for like if you're painting at night, or you were working on a car or something like that. Really, probably any old lamp would be okay. Test and find out, you know, if it works for you. So we've got a light underneath the table, glass tabletop, paper pattern piece, and then I've got some tracing paper on top, and I can just go to town and trace. And let me tell you guys, this is so much easier than taping a pattern to like a big window in my house, and you know, having to do all that tracing like on a vertical plane, or doing this where the light is above you, and then when you get over it you're casting shadows, which is a terrible situation. This is the way to go. Last but not least, this is my computer desk. And you may be like, what does this have to do with sewing? It doesn't have a ton to do with sewing per se, but it has a lot to do with having a sewing blog. So my dual monitor setup here is where I do a lot of my blogging, a lot of my video editing, a lot of my photo editing, a lot of my social media stuff. This is where it all goes down. And really without this kind of setup right here, I wouldn't be able to communicate with you the way that I do. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of my sewing room. It's been a lot of fun and a long process getting to this point, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out, and I hope it gave you some ideas for your sewing space, maybe things that you could do, or maybe stuff you'd like to avoid. I would love to hear your 2 cents on what I've shown you. So if you could, please leave a comment down below, or you could hit me up on Instagram. I'm at z.mocked.sewing, and I will talk to you again really soon. Bye. This is my non-sewing workspace. All right, let's try that again.